Hey everyone, the offseason is sort of getting into gear. It's not officially kicked off. Obviously, we still have semis and finals of Worlds, but this is the time of the year where the rumors start to come out, decisions start to be made. There are decisions being made right now, or being tentatively made and waiting for other dominoes to fall in order to confirm them. Players deciding. You've got kind of the key players at the top of the pyramid deciding which team to sign with or to commit that they're going to sign with, and then that'll influence whether their second or third option have to go to their plan B or C or D. And all of that is starting to happen right now. Those first dominoes are getting ready to fall, and all that information is starting to percolate out. Some of that information comes from honest leaks, people sharing with others who share with others, and then it gets kind of confirmed or going to reporters. And some of it comes from intentional kind of stir the pot kind of leaks, where maybe somebody's intentionally trying to steer things a certain direction, so they'll put a little information out there. But all of that comes together to make for a very exciting time. One of my favorite times of the competitive year, the off season, and speculating on rosters and seeing the pieces come together. So I wanted to take a little time to go through the LCS and the 10 teams and talk about what I would like to see happen for them. What is my personal wish list for each of the 10 LCS organizations? And so we're going to do that. And I feel a little bit burned on this because the first team that I want to talk about, I'm going to go through like reverse standings order from the summer, basically. And so that means the first team I was going to talk about is CLG. And so yesterday I was preparing this video and writing out what I think should happen. And I was looking around and going, you know what? I think, okay, they brought in Greg Kim to be kind of the senior leader of the overall kind of organization. But what they need is, I thought, a new voice in terms of like general management. Who's going to be hiring the coaching staff and setting primary direction on the roster and all that kind of stuff. I thought they need a new voice there. And so they had already announced that they had let go of Tafo Kintz, who was the general manager for this year. And I had also noticed that Golden Guardians had released their assistant general manager, John McDaniel. And I kind of was looking at this and thinking, you know what I'd really like for CLG? I want them to hire John McDaniel as their new general manager. And guess what? About half an hour before I was going to shoot this video, they announced that. So I feel like that rug was pulled out from under my feet, but I'm happy about it. And the reason that I wanted this and why I'm happy that they're doing it is that John has, like his resume and his background is really in building talent development pipelines, building sustainable, that kind of orientation in an org. A really big chunk of his resume is working with Cloud9 Academy, and before that, I believe he was involved in like the challenger teams and so on, identifying players to include in that, making that part of what the organization does. And I think Academy has been a huge benefit for Cloud9, both in terms of promoting players to the main roster, with Blabber, with Fudge, players like that, and also with having business value, allowing them by promoting Fudge, they were able to sell Licorice. By promoting Blabber, they were able to sell Svenskeren, and this year they're able to sell Palafox and Diamond and so on, and it's a very big business value as well. He's a big part of all of that, and maybe not directly involved in each of those moments, especially recently while he's been with Golden Guardians, but laid the foundation for a lot of that to happen. And this is something that I think CLG really needs, is starting to build that sustainability and not throwing in the best 5 players we think we can afford right now and hoping it works, and then next year doing the same thing. And with Golden Guardians, you could see they were very much working in that direction as well. He was trying to bring in that same kind of a framework. Let's build for, the long term. Let's take a project where we build up our core and then we add on top of it at the end to try to push us over the edge. And Golden Guardians got hurt really bad by the COVID budget squeeze that kind of took away the end of that project for the last one, and they were trying to start it over again, a 2-3 year project. And I think this is exactly what CLG needs to try to do, and that they didn't really show the aptitude or even really the intention of trying to do before, and he's going to come and he's going to do that, no question. So I'm really excited. CLG already doing what I wanted for them on my wish list, but I'm not going to write them a new wish list item. They already did it. Christmas came early. Next up, let's talk about FlyQuest. So what I want for FlyQuest is I hope they build their 2022 roster, and for the long term, around NXI and Palafox. And I've talked before, I did an armchair GM session on them, and how NXI was a big part of kind of what I thought my plans would be there. But I think what FlyQuest really need to do is they're not really in a position to take a core they have, spend on the right 1 or 2 free agents or imports, and suddenly that's enough to push them in the top 3. I think they need to take the next long, slow step in their process. I think what they picked up with NXI and what they developed over the course of the year was really positive, and he grew, and he's an LCS quality jungler, and with more time in the LCS and the right people around him, he's going to grow into that more. And you need to find the next NXI. You need 2 or 3 or even 4 of those to put you into that position to then take that step over the line in the future. So invest in that. Pick that up from what you had last year. Like, a lot of things didn't work out well for you, but pick up the things that did. Palafox is another player who I think has that in him to, at the very least, be part of that next couple of years of setting up for the big push. Continue to invest on those. The hard part's going to be deciding what to do with the other pieces they have in the org. Which players to let go out of Academy, which players to retain and try to compete for that spot. But make NXI and Palafox your core for 2022 and build around them and keep that pipeline going to put pressure on them from below going forward. Then we go to Golden Guardians, where John has left. And the big, I think the number one wish list item I have for them is I want to see them promote Prismal. And this is a little selfish because I'm always oriented towards the Academy side and promotion and NA talent and all of that. But I would love to see them give Prismal his LCS shot. I think with him being promoted and having Licorice and Ablaze Olive as a really good core of solo lane talent for them, they, secondary thing, I hope that they get their budget increased enough to make a splash at either jungle or support. If they have Licorice, Ablaze Olive, Prismal, and then can layer in some other talent, maybe with an import slot in one or both of those places, then I think they could compete. They could be a top 4 or 5 team if it all works out well. So, and it's not really about 2022 if they do this. It's again about like year 2 of a 3-year plan, and I think Prismal is part of moving that forward. So, number 1, I want them to promote Prismal, and number 2, I hope they have enough budget to kind of make good on taking that next step. Dignitas will be up next. What's on my wish list for Dignitas is, and you can see for these like bottom tier competitively of kind of the standings teams, it focuses a lot on talent pipeline and development and long-term things, and it's the same for Dignitas. I really want to see them re-sign Will, who I think is the strongest, maybe the strongest asset they have in the org right now, depending on how you look at Aframu, who is technically going to be a free agent, whether you still consider him to be internal or, re-signing him would be a pretty valuable thing. Depending what you think about, Saligo or, Neo or some of these guys who are pretty good. But I think Will and the level of potential he has, I think he is the most valuable piece they have, given that they want a player who's going to be able to help them pay off in like 2023 and beyond that. That's when they could be setting themselves up to be ready to compete for the top. And if they can keep Will in the organization, and it still baffles me that they were only able to sign him for remainder of the summer split and they couldn't get him on a multi-year deal. But so he is going to be a free agent this offseason, and I'm curious what he's going to want to do. But if they can re-sign him, then I don't really even care that much what they do at the LCS level. Re-sign him, work him up through Academy some more, set him up to have the right pieces around him. And, obviously you can't do this all with just one player, but set up for that 2023 payoff with him and with the other pieces you have, whether that's Fake Odds, Saligo, Neo, Aframu, whatever it's going to be around that. And look, don't try to shortcut your process in 2022. Make it clear that you're working for that young talent growth in 2023 payoff. Next up, spot number 6, going from 10 to 1. Would be Immortals. And this is, I don't know, this might feel like a bit of a cop-out, but the main thing I want that I would have on my wish list for Immortals is budget. I want to see them be able to assemble the roster they want. I get the impression that this year, like, it's not to cast aspersions on the players that they did have, but, I think that what Giotto, their head coach, showed is that he could nurse some really good performance out of his players, where on paper that roster was not as strong as most other teams in the league. But he got them into a pretty good spot, right? He got them into top 6 by the end of summer. And I think if they can up their budget a little bit and be surgical about which roles they're going to replace or upgrade, they could definitely help that roster take another step forward. And so with that, I think that's the main thing they really need is they've got Giotto there, who's a good coach who can get strong performance. They've got a roster where they can definitely choose some of those pieces to move forward with, but they need to have enough money that they can do not a budget roster build, like not a low budget roster build, but like a really like set ourselves up to try to compete. So I hope that can happen. I know that financial stability is really important to the org, and that's the position that they've been setting themselves up to have. But hopefully all the money is working out well, and they can take a step with that. Number 5, evil geniuses. Now, my wish list item here feels very selfish because that there are certain players that I'm the most excited about, and they're all academy players who I want to see get into LCS, and that's the case here as well. I really want to see them promote Jojo Pyun as their starting mid laner. I think that he's got the skill. He just turned 17. He's by far got the skill, and what he needs is experience playing against players who can match him in lane, which you will not be finding in academy. You need to find that in LCS. He can grow outside of the LCS still. There are a lot of things he can do to work on cleaning up his decision making and expanding his champion pool even more, although it is pretty big already, I think. But the fastest growth he's going to get is playing in LCS. And he might have a shaky start if he does, right? He might have a shaky entirety of spring, but I'm really confident that by summer he would be just a great choice, especially relative to the amount you'd have to pay for him. Spending a ton of money to import a giant free agent, you're going to get a better 2022 performance out of that. But performance, the value per performance is going to be so much higher in JoJo, plus he's a domestic player. You're setting yourselves up to show that you've got a long-term future here, and you're not just going all in on the next one season. So it does feel a little bit selfish because I have this bias towards promoting academy players, but I guess to be a little bit less kind of emotional about it and step back a little bit more, I want EG to show that all of the talent pipeline work they've done over the past year to build out their amateur team, to invest in such a young academy roster and an experienced academy roster, to bring all these players along. I want to show that wasn't just for show, right? I want them to show that these are players we actually intend to use in the LCS going forward, and not just spend big on the free agent market and importing and so on. Even though we have these pieces down here, I think that is something that's really important for NA, but I think it's also something that makes sense for EG when they look internally, because you want to have these players convinced that growing inside EG is worthwhile, and you're not just going to get locked away in academy and let's say Bjergsen became available to EG and it's like, sorry Jojo, we can't promote you because we got Bjergsen, and obviously we have to sign Bjergsen, right? Like, well, then the next JoJo might look at you and go, they're just going to put a Bjergsen in front of me even if I get good enough. So I think you want to be able to attract these players. I think you want to be able to show them that you are a pipeline into the LCS. And I think that's the message EG have been sending all year, and now they need to actually deliver on what they've been promising. So I really want to see them, even if they don't, even if they don't promote JoJo, I want to see them demonstrate by their actions that their talent pipeline means something. And we'll see what that actually looks like, right? Like, I don't think it's not like there's no world where they could keep JoJo, outside of the LCS, whether they, have him in academy or loan him somewhere else or do something creative like that. It's not impossible that could be the right decision for them, and that I'd be okay with it. This kid is really, really young. And so, it's not like you're up against a timer of wasting his prime years or something, but I don't know. This is my wish list, and it's what I want to see. But I'll be interested to see what they actually do. So let's move on. Let's not dwell on this too long. TSM, fourth place finishing team. So generally speaking, I want to see Spica become the future anchor of this team, and I want to see him have a mid jungle partnership that really suits him. I think that the stylistic matchup with Power of Evil wasn't the best fit for him this year. I think it didn't help him to shine as brightly as he could have, even though he did shine pretty brightly. But for the sake of the team as a whole, to help them get into that top 3 and attend Worlds in NA next year, I think give him a mid lane partner that can really help him shine. And given the amount of money TSM has and the importance they are as a brand, I think they could bring in a real superstar. So my wish list item would be finding a real superstar mid, like assuming Bjergsen. Bjergsen would be good here. Fine, I think. But if I was really going to wish list something for them, either re-sign Bjergsen or like bring Bjergsen back, or bring in a player like Humanoid who might be available for Mad Lions based on how Worlds ended up and the messaging that seems to be coming out of their camp. Give me the absolute best mid laner possible who can be a jungle enabling player to at least some degree, and make that mid jungle partnership just basically try to make that the strongest pairing the league has. I think TSM can do it. I think having Spica there is already, half of that puzzle solved. But that's what I'd be most excited about seeing from them. I'd be a lot more excited about that than I would about a big name free agent bot lane import or something like that. Mid lane is what I really want to see. All right, Cloud9, third place team on this list. Obviously, there's a lot of talk going on around Perks, and does he want to stay or does he want to go back to LEC, and where is he leaning and what's going to happen. But what I think I really want from Cloud9, you could look at it and say, oh, I want Perks to stay because this team has can continue to go places and he's such a big deal. What matters to me is getting core continuity. I think their core, I don't think Perks was core, partly because I tend to think about domestic core when I say this, but that's not really entirely what I mean here. I just mean like the core of their team identity and what makes them the team they are, and what they want to build around going forward. And I've always said that I believe Blabber and Vulcan are maybe the strongest pair of domestic players that any team has in the league. And Fudge has become part of that core to me as well this year. And I think that all of them still have things they can improve on and things they can continue to grow into. None of them are like coming up against an age gate or something like that. They're not on some kind of decline. And I think having Blabber, Vulcan, and Fudge is, to me, probably the strongest domestic core in the league. And I want to see that continue, and I want to see them tweak what they've done around that to take another step forward, right? Whether that's with Perks and maybe a change in the bot lane, whether it's a change in the mid lane and they hold on to Sven, maybe it's changing both. I don't know. But I think that continuity of at least two of those domestic players, to me, all three, would be what I want to see out of them. I do want to throw in as a note, if I'm calling them the strongest domestic core, I want to give a lot of credit to FBI and Huhi, who are, in their own right, a two-player domestic core that is similarly strong. But I just do want to shout that out for Cloud9, that I think this is a huge strength that most teams in the league can't really rival. And so don't try to build around your imports and see if you can upgrade on these three domestic players, because it's so difficult to upgrade on domestic players if they're already this level. So that's what I want to see out of Cloud9 personally. Team Liquid, my wish list for them. Well, again, there seem to be some rumors that maybe Alfari wants to leave the team and go back to LEC or something like that. I think given the drama that happened around him in the summer split and some of the vibes that I've had off him in certain content pieces and so on, I've been saying for a few months now that I didn't think it was likely Alfari would still be with Team Liquid in 2022. Assuming that's the case, and that chunk of salary budget kind of becomes available, and especially if they're able to move his contract and get a bit of a return in a buyout, combined with that, I don't think TL spent to the same level as some of the other teams like TSM or C9 or 100 Thieves did this past year. I think Team Liquid can up their budget and make a really, really big splash. So basically, I want to see Team Liquid impress me. Show that you are the big money team that you've been kind of portraying yourselves to be. make a big splash. Do something that, I mean, catch me off guard if you need to. But at the end of the day, I want to be like, wow, I can't believe they did that. I want to see a Piglet level move. I want to see, Alfari was a pretty big move and not quite on the same scale, I think, given, that perks happen and sort of happen and stuff like that. Like put yourselves out in front again. And this is not because I'm in favor of unsustainable spending in the LCS or anything like that, but I think there are teams that can do it, and it is exciting, and I think it is positive for the league in certain ways, as long as they're not, hamstringing themselves budgetarily to do this and just doing it for the sake of spending. But if that money is being spent on an actual good quality of player that is going to move the league forward, then go for it. And so that's what I think I want to see out of Team Liquid. And the way I phrased it in my notes for this was, may all your import dreams come true. So, yeah, that's my wish list item for them. There are all other kinds of other little things I could go into. I think refreshing their academy project with a couple new faces might be good. But let's be honest, Team Liquid just needs to be number one. That's all they care about. There are multiple teams in the league that all they care about is being number one. And I want to see them pull out all the stops to do it. And for 100 Thieves, well, this is an interesting one. And I feel like I vibed out most of what I want to say about them when I was talking about Evil Geniuses already, because these are the two orgs that had the strongest talent pipelines this year. But basically, I want to see them get their top-level academy players into the LCS. That's my wish list for them. Whether it's promoting them internally, whether it's putting Kenvi and or Tenacity into the LCS in their own team, or selling them to another team. Either way, I want to see, number one, I want to see Kenvi in the LCS next year. And number two, Tenacity, I think, not quite to the same extent as Kenvi. I think there's a little more opportunity for him to grow in Academy, but Tenacity as well. I would love to see him in LCS next year. So I don't know if this just means finding the right buyer for Kenvi at a price point that they're comfortable with, because I don't know how you move on from Closer after this year, but honestly, I think they could. I think they could sell Closer at peak value and promote Kenvi, and that would be a pretty good move competitively. Or what it's going to be. I don't think these are players who should split time by any means. I don't know exactly how you manage this logjam, but I think it doesn't benefit 100 Thieves to field Closer and keep Kenvi in Academy. I don't think it benefits them to very much, although it's slightly more reasonable to field someday and keep Tenacity in Academy. I think these are players who are good enough that they should be in LCS, enriching that and learning and growing from it. And obviously, 100 Thieves they don't want to give these players away. They've invested into developing them. They are kind of assets, if you want to look at them from that perspective, that you don't just like, hey, I developed this player over the past 2 years or year and a half. I think they're really good, but I don't have a place for them. So here, you play with them instead and come and try to beat me in the LCS. Like, you can't just do that. But it also doesn't make sense to have these players sitting in Academy, bumping up against a ceiling that they can't really exceed until they're in LCS, playing against the next level of competition and growing from that and benefiting from the LCS coaching staff more directly, which generally you'd expect that the LCS coaching staff is supposed to be higher quality than your Academy coaching staff. It doesn't make sense to have them kind of up against that ceiling and not generating any extra organizational value from them, right? Like, you might want to say, hey, I think I deserve a $1 million buyout for this player, and they're only offering me $500,000. But if the decision was between $500,000 and having them stagnate in Academy, and 1 year from now, you're still not going to get that $1 million, and it's just a year later, I don't know. Like, I want to see these players moved somewhere. I think that 100 Thieves might have to, get a little less. They might have to either make a hard choice to move a starter in order to promote these guys, or they might have to lower their expectations on the buyout value and what the market's going to permit them to do or whatever. But I just hope, I don't have to solve these problems, so it's easier for me to sit on the outside and talk about it and say what I'd like to see happen. But I would hope to see Kenvi and Tenacity move up. And, the other players to a lesser extent, and maybe there is some opportunity for a player like Poom to be looked at some more also. I think when you add in the fact that you've got a player like Chad in 100 Thieves next who could come into Academy and be next year's development project, again, there's internal pressure to move these guys and not just have the value of them kind of dissipate over time. So I'm hoping that all of those pressures work out to give me what I want, because that's what this video is all about. I understand that it may be difficult for 100 Thieves to make all of that happen in the way that I'd, from the outside, like to see it happen, but it's my wish list. It's what I'm hoping for. And we'll find out. I think it's going to be far more difficult to bring about my dreams than I would hope it would be. But that's the task, coming in throughout the year. I've continued to say, and I've said this directly to Papa Smithy a few times. Hey, you've got some real problems to solve. They're good problems to solve, but they are going to be problems that you're going to have to figure out with all of these players in this logjam of talent. So good luck to them sorting it out. I know what I'm hoping will happen, but I don't know if it will. So that's my wish list for the 10 LCS orgs for the 2021 offseason. I'll react to news as it breaks. I'm not going to be out there, reporting on things I don't think, but when news comes out that is substantial and firmly reported, I'll definitely be sharing lots of reactions as it comes, and identifying whether it fits in with what I hoped would happen or not. Maybe referring back to some of the armchair GM sessions I've done, and hopefully that'll be a lot of fun and interest and will be interesting. And yeah, I think we're gonna have a very, very dramatic and exciting off season. So there'll be lots more to talk about. Thanks for watching.